During the will reading, Grandpa's attorney handed me a $20 million check. My parents insisted I hand it over. When I said no, they snatched it and set it on fire, taunting, "You'll never touch a dime. It's ours now." I burst out laughing because the check they ruined was actually, you know that feeling when everything changes in an instant? I was sitting in my grandfather's lawyer's office, surrounded by relatives who barely knew him when he was alive, when I heard those words, "To my beloved granddaughter Rachel, I leave $20 million. The room went dead silent. But it was the predatory look in my parents' eyes. That instant their bored expressions morphed into something hungry. That sent a chill down my spine. Oh, if only they knew, their greed was about to lead them straight into a trap Grandpa had set just for them. So, yeah, my parents. Kenneth and Diana Mitchell. They were less mom and dad and more social strategists. Our massive Victorian house in Beacon Hill was all about appearances, a show for their elite friends. Inside? It was cold. Empty. The one person who filled that void, who taught me what family should be, was my Grandpa William. He was the real deal. Built his entire fortune from nothing, starting with a small construction company that eventually became Mitchell Enterprises, worth hundreds of millions. But unlike my parents, he wasn't about the flash. This man wore the same Timex for 40 years, drove old American cars until they gave up. "Money is just a tool, Rachel," he'd tell me during our Sunday walks in the public garden. "It's what you build with it that truly matters." While my parents were off chasing socialites in Monaco or Aspen, Grandpa taught me to fish, to change a tire, real life skills. He showed up for every single school play, science fair, graduation. My parents? Always unavoidably detained by some critical social engagement. It just taught me to value character over cash. So, when I graduated from Boston University with a degree in environmental science and photography, I did the unthinkable. I turned down a cushy executive job at Mitchell Enterprises. My father, Kenneth, practically exploded. "You're throwing away your potential. Do you have any idea what people would give for your opportunities?" he screamed. I just calmly told him, "I'm creating my own." That really lit him up. My mother, Diana, was more subtle, more insidious. "Darling, hobbies are lovely, but surely you can pursue them while maintaining a proper position in society?" I moved out the next day, right into a modest apartment in Cambridge with my best friend, Heather. She got me. She didn't care about the Mitchell name or connections, just about me. My relatives were utterly baffled by my life choices. I drove a practical Subaru, wore clothes for comfort and my savings. They went into camera equipment and conservation projects, not designer bags or luxury trips. The only luxury I allowed was an annual donation to the New England Wildlife Center, a tradition Grandpa and I started when I was 16. He always said, "Your parents think money is for showing off. They've never understood that true wealth is having enough to help others, without worrying if there's enough left for yourself." Last year, Grandpa's health took a turn. Aggressive cancer. Without a second thought, I dropped everything, put my international photography assignments on hold, and moved into his guest room. I wanted to be there for him. My parents? They'd occasionally swoop in, always with their lawyer in tow, trying to force a discussion about the estate while Grandpa was still lucid. He'd just wave them off. Plenty of time for that later. But to me, he'd confide, "They've been circling like vultures for years, Rachel." "Your father? He's been borrowing against his inheritance for decades." I had no idea, but it suddenly clicked, their ridiculously lavish lifestyle, despite my dad's mediocre business career. Those last months, we talked more openly than ever. He shared stories, regrets. "I gave him too much, too easily," he'd say about my father, his voice heavy with sadness. I thought I was showing love, but I was just enabling his worst instincts. "I won't make that mistake with you, Rachel." I just thought he was reflecting on past parenting. I didn't realize he was laying out clues for his masterpiece. When Grandpa finally passed, peacefully in his sleep, I was holding his hand. My parents arrived 2 hours later, not to comfort me, but to demand the key to his home office. The funeral a week later? A spectacle. It would have horrified Grandpa. My parents orchestrated the most extravagant affair imaginable, a casket fit for royalty, flowers overflowing, and a reception at the Ritz-Carlton that felt more like a networking event than a memorial. I stood in a corner with Heather, watching as relatives who'd barely acknowledged Grandpa in life suddenly put on a show of grief, or maybe it was just anticipation. Heather handed me a glass of water, knowing I always stayed sober at family functions. Gotta keep my wits about me, I told her. This circus would have amused Grandpa, she said. Actually, he'd have found it darkly prophetic, I corrected. He always said, you learn who people really are when money enters the picture. I had no idea just how right he was. The will reading was set for 10 a.m. downtown. I got there early with Heather, my emotional support, because I knew this was going to be a show. The waiting room was already packed with relatives I only saw at Christmas, all buzzing with barely contained anticipation. My mom, Diana, air-kissed me, her Chanel perfume suffocating. Rachel, darling. We saved you a seat. She was immaculate, not a hair out of place. I just waved her off, choosing a seat in the back with Heather. My father, Kenneth, barely grunted a greeting, still huddled with his brother, Robert, whispering about something I knew was business. The conference room was exactly what you'd expect. Mahogany, leather, stern portraits staring down at us. Old money. Mr. James Blackwell, Grandpa's attorney and friend of 40 years, walked in last. He was in his 70s, silver-haired, looking more like a distinguished professor than a corporate shark. He offered his condolences, genuinely. My father, of course, cleared his throat. We appreciate the sentiment, James, but perhaps we could proceed? Blackwell just gave him a tight-lipped look and carried on. My mind drifted back to Grandpa, just 3 days before he passed. He'd been lucid, almost energetic. Rachel, he'd said, clutching his old leather journal. I want you to know I've made provisions. You won't have to worry. I'd tried to change the subject, but he just smiled. It's not just about money. It's about justice. And consequences. Some people have been waiting a long time for a payday they haven't earned. He'd squeezed my hand. Trust James. He knows what to do. Back in the room, Blackwell started reading. Small bequests first. $10,000 to the housekeeper, $20,000 to the gardener, donations to charities, little trinkets for friends. Even great Aunt Edith got a comfortable annuity. But the big stuff? Still unaddressed. The tension was palpable. My father's leg bounced under the table, my mother's gaze kept burning into me. Then, Blackwell mentioned Mitchell Enterprises. Everyone leaned forward. Grandpa's controlling interest? It wasn't going to my father. It was going into a trust, managed by the board, with modest dividends for family members. My father's knuckles went white gripping the chair. This is irregular. Uncle Robert blurted out. Blackwell didn't flinch. These are William's explicit wishes. Contest them and the company is immediately sold to its employees. The room fell silent. Grandpa had played them like a fiddle. More minor bequests. Classic cars to a museum, art to cultural institutions. The vacation home in Maine to great Aunt Edith. The ski lodge to be sold for conservation. My mother couldn't hold it in any longer. The Beacon Hill home, she gasped. Blackwell held up a hand. I'm coming to that, Diana. But first, there's a matter William considered of paramount importance. He looked directly at me. A shiver went down my spine. Then he read it. To my beloved granddaughter, Rachel Elizabeth Mitchell. I leave the sum of $20 million to be transferred immediately into trusts established in her name. The silence that followed was absolute. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. $20 million. It was an incomprehensible amount. I earn a good living, but this was more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. And then, the silence shattered. My father erupted. This is outrageous. He stood so fast his chair crashed into the wall. There must be some mistake. My mother, her perfect facade crumbling, echoed him. My cousin Marcus cursed. Through the chaos, I just sat there, frozen. Heather squeezed my hand, trying to ground me. Blackwell, God bless him, calmly raised his hands. There's more. When the room quieted, he pulled out an envelope. This bequest comes with a personal message from William. He handed it to me. My hands were shaking as I opened it, instantly recognizing Grandpa's distinctive handwriting. I read silently, the room a blur around me. Grandpa's words filled my head. My dearest Rachel, the money I've left you represents not just my love, but my absolute trust in your judgment and character. Unlike others who viewed my wealth as their birthright, you've always worked for what you wanted. You're the only one I trust to use it wisely. Your work documenting and protecting endangered species has made me prouder than any business deal I ever closed. Some family members will be upset. Let them be. Their reactions will only confirm what I already know about their character. James has documentation that will explain more, but certain individuals have already taken far more than their fair share. Use this money to pursue your dreams, Rachel. Just promise me you'll never let wealth change who you are. I looked up, tears blurring my vision. My parents were suddenly standing across from me, their anger replaced by these sickeningly sweet, fake smiles. Rachel, sweetheart, my mother cooed, what a wonderful surprise. Your grandfather was always so fond of you. My father nodded, practically vibrating. We should discuss investment strategies immediately. I have several opportunities. Blackwell cut him off, cold as ice. There's more to the will that concerns you directly. They slunk back to their seats, though my mother slid into the chair beside me, patting my arm with a forced affection that made my skin crawl. To my son, Kenneth, and his wife, Diana, Blackwell continued, I leave the sum of $100,000, with a strong suggestion it be used to pay off your outstanding debts, which are considerable. My father's face went crimson. This is absurd. A pittance. Blackwell ignored him. Additionally, Kenneth and Diana are required to vacate the Beacon Hill residence, rent-free until now, within 30 days. The property itself will be placed in trust. My mother's hand froze on my arm. But where are we supposed to go? That's our home. Blackwell, ever so gently, corrected her. It was never your home, Diana. It always remained in William's name. He allowed you to live there as a courtesy. My mind was reeling. Not only had Grandpa left me a fortune, but he'd cut my parents off. That $100,000 wouldn't even touch their debts. As the room emptied, Blackwell asked me and my parents to stay. And I insisted Heather stay too. Once the room was cleared, Blackwell opened a new folder. William asked me to share this privately. He slid documents across the table. These are records of loans made to Kenneth and Diana over the past 15 years, totaling nearly $8 million. None repaid. My father didn't even try to deny it. Those were advances against my inheritance, not loans. Blackwell shut him down. They were formally documented as loans, with interest. Also unpaid. We're family, my mother wailed. William understood our position. We have a certain standard to maintain. Blackwell kept going, unflappable. Additionally, there's the matter of unauthorized withdrawals from Mitchell Enterprises accounts under Kenneth's management. The forensic accounting report is quite detailed. My father went pale. Those were legitimate business expenses. Blackwell just raised an eyebrow. The vacation home in the Maldives? The yacht? The gambling debts in Monaco? I felt physically ill. My own father, who had lectured me my entire life about responsibility, had been stealing from his own dad. This is why Rachel received the bulk of the liquid assets, Blackwell concluded. William no longer trusted you with significant sums, Kenneth. This is ridiculous. My father snapped, turning to me, his voice dripping with venom. Rachel, you can't possibly need $20 million. As your parents, we expect you to do the right thing here. The right thing, I echoed, finally finding my voice. Family supports family, my mother interjected, trying to sound smooth. Your grandfather wasn't in his right mind. We can contest the will, create a scandal, or we can handle this privately as a family. What exactly are you asking for? I asked, though I already knew. We'll need at least $10 million, my father said, as if discussing the weather, to cover our obligations and maintain our lifestyle. It's only fair. I looked at them. Truly looked. These people who had always put status over me. Who missed my college graduation for a yacht party. Who criticized every choice I made unless it served them. And now they were demanding I bail them out of problems they created. No, I said. Just one word. What did you say? My father's voice dropped, dangerously low. I said, I repeated, looking him dead in the eye. No. I won't be giving you any money. Blackwell cleared his throat. Before this discussion continues, William asked me to provide Rachel with this. He produced a crisp paper check. $20 million. My name. He explained it was a tangible marker. The funds were already electronically transferred. My father, fuming, declared, "This discussion isn't over. We'll continue at home." I just looked at him. "Not your home anymore," I whispered. Later that afternoon, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet them at Grandpa's mansion. Heather offered to come, but this was a fight I needed to have alone. "Just keep your phone on," she'd said. "Call me if things get weird." Define weird, I joked, when it comes to my family. They were waiting in Grandpa's study, where he'd taught me chess as a little girl. My father was pacing, my mother stiff on the sofa. "Rachel," my father started, "you need to understand. Everything we've done has been for this family's legacy." "What legacy would that be?" I shot back. "The legacy of living beyond your means? Of taking advantage of Grandpa's generosity? Of embezzlement?" "Don't be dramatic," my mother interjected, trying to pivot. "Your grandfather indulged you. You were his pet project. But running this family takes more than charity work and wildlife photos." "And what, exactly, have you contributed, Mother?" I challenged, "besides spending its money?" My father slammed his hand on Grandpa's desk. "Enough. We are your parents. We gave you everything." "Grandpa gave me those things," I corrected him, "when he wasn't busy covering for your mistakes." He started to call me ungrateful, but caught himself. Your grandfather wasn't thinking clearly. Cancer medication. His judgment was compromised. I just raised an eyebrow. Funny how you never questioned his judgment when he was bailing you out of your financial disasters. My mother tried the soft approach. "Darling, we understand you're grieving. But think what this money could mean for all of us. We could settle our temporary difficulties, renovate the properties, keep the family name respected." "You mean," I said, "you could keep pretending to be wealthier than you are, while contributing nothing of value?" My father abandoned all pretense of civility. "After everything we've sacrificed for you." "Sacrificed?" I scoffed. "From where I'm standing, Grandpa made all the sacrifices while you two took advantage of him." He was shouting now. He was my father. That money should have come to me directly, not funneled through my daughter like some sick power play. "Maybe," I said quietly, "he knew you couldn't be trusted with it." My mother approached, calculation in her eyes. "Rachel, be reasonable. We're talking about your future, too. Without our guidance, you'll make mistakes. You don't understand how the world of wealth works." "I understand enough," I countered, "to know that $20 million doesn't disappear unless someone is catastrophically irresponsible with it. Like you two have been with everything Grandpa ever gave you." My father made a visible effort to calm himself. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll transfer $10 million to our accounts. We'll handle the family obligations, settle our debts, and everyone can move forward." "And if I refuse?" I asked. "Then we contest the will," my mother stated. "Claim undue influence, diminished capacity. It would be messy, public." "Is that what you want for his legacy?" The threat hung heavy in the air. I knew they'd do it. Not because they'd win, but out of pure, petty spite. "Fine," I said at last. "Let me think about it." A wave of relief washed over their faces. They thought they'd won. "That's our sensible girl," my mother beamed, reaching to pat my cheek. I pulled back. I said I'd think about it. I didn't agree to anything. "The check," my father demanded, "where is it?" "In my purse," I replied, pointing to my bag on a side table. He moved incredibly fast for a man his age, snatching it before I could react. "What are you doing?" I yelled, lunging for it. My mother blocked me. "This is for your own good, Rachel. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than ever." I shot back. What happened next was like something out of a movie. My father held up the check triumphantly. My mother pulled out her antique silver lighter, a gift from some European socialite. "One last chance," my father warned, holding the check just above my reach. "Agree to our terms, or this symbolic gesture becomes exactly that, just a symbol." "You can't be serious." I gasped. "That check is made out to me. It's my property." Not anymore, my mother said, her voice cold as ice as she flicked the lighter. My father dangled the check over the flame. $10 million. That's our offer. I told you the money's already transferred. I cried. Burning that check won't change anything. My father's eyes narrowed. No, I think this matters more than you're admitting. Maybe Blackwell was bluffing. Maybe this check is the only way you can access those funds. He wasn't listening. With a nod to my mother, he lowered the check. I watched in disbelief as the paper caught fire, curling and blackening. No, I screamed, reaching for it, but they blocked me. The check burned quickly, reduced to ash, which my father then brushed off onto Grandpa's antique desk. Now you'll never see a cent, he declared with savage satisfaction. It's ours now. We'll go to Blackwell tomorrow, explain the distribution was unfair. With the check destroyed, he'll have to reissue the funds properly. The sheer audacity of it, the absolute ridiculousness, suddenly hit me. I started to laugh. It was a small chuckle at first, then it built, bending me double, uncontrollable, hysterical laughter. My parents exchanged worried glances. She's hysterical, my mother declared, reaching for her phone. I'm calling Dr. Winters. No, I gasped between laughs. I'm not hysterical. I'm just amazed at how completely you've misunderstood everything. What's so funny? My father demanded, his triumph turning to confusion. I managed to control myself. That check you just burned? I said it was ceremonial. The money is already in trust in my name. Blackwell set it all up weeks ago. Their expressions shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to dawning horror. You're lying, my mother accused, but her voice was weak. Call Blackwell if you don't believe me, I offered, pulling out my phone. Or better yet, I tapped the screen and held it up. I just logged into one of the trust accounts. See for yourself. They both stared at the balance on my phone. 10 million. Just in one account. That's not possible, my father stammered. Grandpa knew you better than you thought, I told them quietly. He anticipated exactly what you might try to do. That's why the check was just for show. A test maybe. To see what you would do when faced with temptation. A test we failed, my mother whispered, sinking back onto the sofa. Spectacularly, I agreed. My father's face contorted with pure rage. This isn't over. We can still contest. Fraud. Manipulation. Just then, the study door opened. James Blackwell walked in, followed by 2 security officers. Actually, Kenneth, Blackwell said, his voice calm and steady, it is over. I received an alert when Rachel's check was destroyed. We had it coded with an RFID chip for exactly this scenario. You were spying on us, my mother gasped. Protecting my client's interests, Blackwell corrected. William anticipated you might resort to desperate measures. He turned to the security guards. Please escort Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell from the premises. They are no longer welcome here. This is outrageous. My father exploded. I'll see you for everything. I'll have your license revoked. Blackwell didn't even flinch. You're welcome to try, Kenneth. But before you do, you might want to consider the documented evidence I have of your embezzlement from Mitchell Enterprises. Evidence that, until now, has not been shared with the board of directors or the authorities. My father blanched. You wouldn't. I most certainly would, Blackwell assured him. William chose not to press charges out of consideration for Rachel. I have no such constraints. My mother rose shakily. This house is still ours. You can't just throw us out. Actually, I said, finding a newfound strength I can. As of this morning, I am the legal owner of this property. Their heads snapped to me. What? Blackwell explained another provision. The Beacon Hill property was now in my trust. The 30-day grace period for them to vacate? I'm terminating it based on your actions today. You can't do this to us, my mother pleaded, her facade crumbling completely. Where will we go? For a fleeting moment, I felt pity. Not enough to change my mind, but enough to soften my tone. You have the 100,000 Grandpa left you. It's enough for a decent apartment while you figure things out. 100,000. My father looked physically ill. That won't even cover the interest on our debts. Then perhaps, I suggested, it's time to live within your means. The security officers stepped forward. The discussion was over. My parents were escorted out. My father, ever the drama queen, couldn't resist one last jab. This isn't the end, Rachel. Family doesn't do this to family. No, I agreed, looking him straight in the eye. Family doesn't burn checks, threaten lawsuits, or steal from each other. You taught me exactly what family isn't supposed to be. After they were gone, Blackwell stayed. Your grandfather would be proud, Rachel. He knew it wouldn't be easy. Did he really anticipate them burning the check? I asked, still reeling. Blackwell smiled sadly. William knew his son better than Kenneth ever realized. The RFID chip? That was his idea. He said, people show you who they really are when they think they have nothing to lose. I looked around Grandpa's study, now empty of their toxic presence. What do I do now, James? $20 million is overwhelming. Take some time, he advised. No rush. The trusts are structured to provide a generous income while protecting the principal. Focus on your photography, travel, whatever brings you joy. An idea sparked. The thing I want to do, I told him, is buy this house. Officially. No trusts, just in my name. That can be arranged. May I ask why? I ran my hand along Grandpa's desk where he'd taught me chess. Because it should stay in the family. The real family. People who loved Grandpa for who he was, not what he could give them. Blackwell nodded, approvingly. I'll start the paperwork tomorrow. As he left, he handed me a small key. One more thing William wanted you to have. His private safe in the library. Documents he felt might help you understand why he made the choices he did. Alone in that study, I felt this strange mix of immense responsibility and exhilarating freedom. For the first time, I was truly independent. No more guilt, no manipulation. No more criticism of my life choices. I called Heather. Holy crap, she breathed when I told her. They actually burned the check. That's straight out of a movie. Reality is stranger sometimes, I laughed, finally able to. So what now? Private jet? Malibu mansion? She teased. Actually, I said, looking around the room, I'm thinking of staying right here. This house, it's more than just property. It's where Grandpa and I connected. Where he taught me what really matters. And that Wildlife Conservation Foundation Grandpa and I always talked about? I think it's time to make it a reality. That's my Rachel, Heather said, warmly. Given life-changing money, and your first thought is sentimental value and helping the planet. Well, yeah, I said. He would have loved that. As I hung up, I wandered through the house, seeing it with new eyes. Not a symbol of inherited wealth, but a home. A place to honor Grandpa's legacy. To build my own. It filled me with purpose. This wasn't just about money. It was about using it wisely, breaking the cycle of entitlement, and proving that the Mitchell name could stand for something truly good. With that resolve, I headed to the library to discover what final lessons Grandpa had waiting in his safe. The next few months were a blur of learning. Financial advisors, attorneys, tax specialists, all orchestrated by Blackwell to make sure I wasn't overwhelmed. Unlike my parents, who saw money as something to flaunt, I saw it as a tool, just like Grandpa taught me. I kept my Cambridge apartment, using the mansion, now Mitchell House, for foundation business, slowly transforming it to reflect my style, not my parents' ostentatious tastes. The William Mitchell Wildlife Conservation Foundation became my absolute focus. I hired Heather, whose background in nonprofit management was invaluable, and together we built its mission, documenting endangered species, funding conservation. Blackwell saw our mission statement. Your grandfather would be thrilled, Rachel. He always said your photography had purpose beyond just beautiful images. My parents, meanwhile, had moved into a luxury apartment in the Back Bay, still living beyond their means, just less spectacularly. They tried to reconnect, always with an ulterior motive. Darling, blood is thicker than water, my mother cooed during an unexpected visit to my apartment, hinting about a charity gala donation they needed to make. What do you want, Mother? I asked directly. No pretense. No money. I just closed the door on her shocked face. My father sent me business proposals, thinly veiled attempts to get at my funds. My financial team easily picked them apart. They even tried spinning tales to Boston's social columnists, playing victims. It didn't work. Old money values discretion. But not all family connections were toxic. My cousin Lily, Uncle Robert's daughter, reached out. We got coffee. I always admired how you stood your ground, she confessed. I just never had the courage. It was more stubbornness than courage, I admitted, and having Grandpa in my corner helped. Turns out, Lily had been secretly pursuing an environmental science degree. She joined the foundation, specializing in habitat restoration. Grandpa's journals, the ones from his safe, gave me even deeper insight. He wrote candidly about his regrets with my father. I tried to bridge that gap with money, only to discover too late that material compensation only widened the emotional chasm. He acknowledged his own awareness of my parents' financial misdeeds, his struggle between protecting family and enabling destructive behavior. Kenneth took another unauthorized loan today. Perhaps I failed him more thoroughly than I realized if he believes I'm either too blind to see or too weak to act. These weren't just entries, they were lessons. For months after the will reading, Mitchell House evolved. We brought in Dr. Jason Bennett, a conservation biologist from MIT, as a scientific advisor. I'd been cautious with people after the inheritance, but Jason? He seemed utterly indifferent to my financial status. He drove a beat-up Prius, lived modestly, sometimes even forgot to cash his foundation checks. Money is just potential energy, he'd say. It only matters when converted into kinetic energy, actual change in the world. It was exactly what Grandpa would have said. Heather, ever observant, nudged me. You can relax, you know. The man's clearly interested in you, not your bank account. The foundation grew. Our first land acquisition, 500 acres in western Massachusetts, was a huge success. My photography thrived, now completely aligned with our mission. At my exhibition, Unseen New England, I felt Grandpa's presence so strongly. Blackwell, standing beside me, murmured, "William didn't want you to live your life seeking his approval, Rachel. He wanted you to live by your own values." That hit me. Was I still seeking his posthumous validation or truly living my values? It was a question I wrestled with. Then came one final attempt at reconciliation from my parents, through their lawyer. A fresh start, they said, contingent on financial support. Another bailout. For days, I debated. What would Grandpa want? What did I want? An entry in his journal gave me the answer. The greatest gift we can give those we love is not protection from consequences, but faith in their capacity to learn from them. I sent a brief, honest reply. No financial assistance. Just the truth about how their actions had affected me, and hoped that one day they'd prioritize relationship over resources. They never responded. But I felt lighter. Free. I wasn't a child seeking approval or a victim nursing wounds anymore. I was an adult with boundaries. I was Rachel Mitchell, defined not by my inheritance, but by the choices I made and the impact I created. A year passed. A year since that insane day in Blackwell's office. I stood at a podium overlooking what used to be Grandpa's favorite fishing spot, now the heart of the William Mitchell Wildlife Sanctuary. Behind me, a beautiful research center. Before me, 3,000 acres of protected forest, wetlands, teeming with life, open for everyone to learn. Today, I told the crowd of conservationists, officials, and reporters, we're not just opening a sanctuary. We're continuing a legacy. Grandpa understood that true wealth isn't what you accumulate, but what you protect for future generations. The foundation had grown beyond my wildest dreams. 15 full-time employees, thousands of acres saved, educational programs thriving. But the biggest growth? That was me. I wasn't just Grandpa's granddaughter or a daughter reacting to toxic parents. I was Rachel Mitchell. Later, Lily approached with champagne. To Uncle William, she toasted. And to you, Rachel. I don't think any of us realized how much this family needed someone to break the cycle. The cycle of using money as a substitute for connection. She even told me Marcus, of all people, was volunteering at a youth center inspired by the foundation. People can surprise you. Speaking of surprises, Lily nodded towards the edge of the gathering. My parents. Standing awkwardly, clearly unsure of their welcome. I hadn't invited them, but I wasn't surprised they showed up. Local press, you know. Excuse me, I said to Lily and walked toward them. My mother smoothed her much less expensive dress. My father looked older, smaller. Rachel, my mother began. It's a beautiful ceremony. Your grandfather would have loved it. Thank you, I replied, keeping my distance. What brings you here? We wanted to see what you've created, my father admitted, clearing his throat. It's impressive. From him, that was practically gushing. I searched their faces. No ulterior motive this time. Just awkward sincerity. How have you been? I asked. Genuinely curious. Managing, my father said, with surprising candor. I'm teaching business classes at a community college now. The pay isn't what I'm used to. He trailed off. But it's honest work, my mother finished. We've downsized considerably. It's been educational. I nodded. This was a new version of them. Humbled. Working for a living. And, for once, seeking connection, not cash. Would you like a tour of the sanctuary? I offered, impulsively. The trails are open. We'd like that, my mother said quickly. If you have time. I can make time, I said, surprising myself. I knew we wouldn't suddenly become a perfect family. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something new. Something real. As I led them toward the trailhead, Jason fell into step beside me, a silent anchor. Our relationship had blossomed into something beautiful, a true partnership. You okay? He murmured, as my parents walked ahead, admiring the trees. I am, I realized aloud. They can't hurt me anymore. Not because I'm rich, but because I know who I am now. He squeezed my hand. You always knew. You just needed to believe it. That evening, after everyone left, I returned to Grandpa's favorite spot, the wooden bench overlooking the pond. It was dusk, fireflies dancing. I pulled out his last journal, an entry I'd read countless times. True wealth, he wrote, is measured not in dollars, but in freedom. Freedom to make choices based on principle. Freedom to help others. Freedom to become the person you're meant to be, not the person others expect. This is the inheritance I hope to leave Rachel, not just financial security, but the courage to live authentically. He gave me exactly that. Not just money, but perspective. The wisdom to see wealth as a responsibility. The understanding that genuine connection is the real measure of a rich life. The $20 million changed my circumstances, yes. But the real transformation came from within. From the choices I made. My phone buzzed. Heather, Foundation's year equals massive success. Proud of you, boss lady. Celebration brunch tomorrow. I smiled, texting back my agreement. This was the true wealth. Friends who were there before the money and stayed true after. Purpose that gave meaning beyond comfort. The freedom to define success on my own terms. As night deepened, I walked back toward the research center, lights still glowing. Tomorrow, new challenges. New opportunities. New chances to honor Grandpa's legacy and build my own. The journey wasn't easy, but it was right. And in the end, that made all the difference. If my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family pressure, especially when money was involved? Or found a new definition of family or wealth? Tell me what you think, I really want to know. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more personal journeys and unexpected twists. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, and remember, sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't what's in the bank account, but the wisdom to use it wisely.